Hello everyone. It's about time I finally try my hand at the Stereotype game, since the Sea of Thieves community loves nothing more than to generalize and poke fun at others. Jokes aside, of course this video will be about the skeleton curse, because it's just my whole personality, couldn't you tell? Anyway, enough with the intro, you probably know exactly how this all works. Let's get going. To start, we have our fresh skellies. These are the people who just got the curse and are pretty pleased with themselves. Generally, I find most skeleton curse people are sloop people, and if so, often both players have the curse on. Though if they're on a larger ship, usually they're the odd one out among a crew who looks like this, and they use their undead status as permission to be very aggressive with boards. Many of them, of course, have above average skills, but haven't faced a ton of adversity yet, so they will crumble under pressure from a higher level player. They likely haven't parted from the sword and love to use it to get sneaky lunge boards and sometimes get away with it in strokes of incredible luck. I've sunk to guys like this more than I would like to admit, because usually they are at the sweet spot between swabby and sweat, and as such they can be incredibly unpredictable. They're not above using quote-unquote underhanded tactics like curse balls, kegs, and island cannons, which when you've gotten used to the rhyme and reason of hourglass established by the top players can occasionally throw you off a bit. They're often on a ghost, masked renegade, or ashen dragon ship. Go figure. Quick diversion though. Notice how none of the brand new skeletons use the default bone color. And beware of those who do. If you see somebody like this who is running the regular whiteys, you might be doomed, as this is the skeleton variant of the sea hobo, aka somebody who most likely has both of their golden hourglass curses and is probably practicing for his League of Thieves scrim, so he's trying to stay under the radar. Back to where we were. Legitimate fresh skellies like this move in one of two directions. Either they are satisfied with the way their curse looks and they drop out of matchmaking to dominate adventure, or they crave more and embrace their potential to become the next tier of player. This rabble right here are your sweats in training. They've gotten pretty accustomed to victory at this point, but still make pretty common mistakes and to their dismay are very sinkable. They're probably putting in considerable effort to learn the meta, and have employed this knowledge to start consistently shooting for champion streaks, which they mostly succeed in. Their hiccups, though, are that usually if a pirate like this is on cannon, they tend to get tunnel visioned on hitting shots and forget to heal or dodge, dying a fair bit. Expect this guy to be spamming the "I need help" command from the pirate chat wheel half the time that this happens. If they're on helm, they treat it as a pretty passive role. They're usually obsessed with keeping mast repaired and will always try to sail out of a death spiral rather than attempt to equalize the position. They rarely snipe, and if their mast falls for good, they often just run below deck and try to plug holes in a panic and leave the rest on the main cannon, who, like I said, probably will die on top deck and forfeit the fight. Loadout-wise, expect to see a lot more double gun, but it's not uncommon for somebody on the boat to still be clutching onto the cutlass and hack you to death if you get too close and aren't ready for it. These are the people that you're most likely to see on what I would call a mid-range ship, like the Fates of Fortune, Dark Adventure, or the Legendary Spirit set. Their biggest grief is that they don't have the bucket head yet, which is a perfect segue into our next category. So here are the skeletons that most people dread to fight. Especially when Hourglass was new, any sort of sunken bone sighting was bad news. Bonus points if they had the bucket head. These guys will usually be on top of most engagements, and are usually free to be completely uncontested in adventure. Oftentimes they have pretty good grasp on finer naval combat at this point, and are usually a lot more lethal with snipes and aggressive boards. They're often die-hard double gunners, and if one is using a sword, it's because they know a whole lot of tech for it. Expect to be sword lunged through obstacles like railings, stairs, and the map table, somehow, or smacked off ladder in ways that you didn't know were possible. It's also likely that this boat is going to be running a good boy ship set or similar year 1 cosmetics, as I've noticed an odd phenomenon that people who have been around for a long time don't really often shoot for anything higher like the gold bones. This is likely because they're probably already pleased with what they've accomplished in the game, and maybe are a little burnt out at the prospect of another huge grind. That being said, I'm sure most people stop playing Hourglass around this stage, but there are still a select few who shoot even higher. I like to call these the Skeleton Lords. They've gone for some pretty impressive commendations which not many can boast. These guys are very, very skilled, and are able to give even top players like streamers a decent run for their money. Though I'd say there is a caveat. Up until this point, I've held back from talking about personal demeanor and temperament for these stereotypes, Because I think it's pretty easy to just say, oh, these guys call you slurs all the time or whatnot, and I don't really think that's fair, as I think really anybody can be toxic in this game. I've met some pretty vile talkers from pretty much every player group, so it's hard to pin down, you know what I mean? Yeah, that is except for this case. Out of all the skeleton categories, at least, guys who are in this camp tend to talk the biggest smack. I'm not saying all of them do. Of course, I've met some very chill people who are at this level of sweating. But if any Skelly is going to be a sore winner or loser, it's most likely to be one who looks like this. Probably because in order to get this far in Hourglass, you have to be somebody with a pretty competitive and ruthless disposition, which can bring along some pretty ugly traits with it. Not that these guys are going to say anything super against the rules, since they clearly care about their account, but more just personal attacks, the phrase bot, and accusations, as like I said, they'll talk badly of you even after they lose. Also, the ones who pipe up are literally all teenage boys, which might be noteworthy. Though I haven't run into anyone like this in a long time, so either they quit the game, or they finally got their gold bones and moved on from matchmaking. Speaking of which, so you're probably expecting this to be straightforward. Anybody who has these bones is very, very skilled and impossible to beat, right? I would say that's mostly correct, but like with everything, there are variations, and even among the top players, there are still massive gaps in both skill and level of dedication. Generally, Gold Skellies first and foremost have strong naval skills across the board, as in order to level up this far, you have to play pretty efficiently for wins, and disciplined naval fighting is the #1 way to achieve the needed consistency. They have a lot of practice with their chosen ship role, meaning that you're probably up against a cannon who rarely misses or gets balled, or a helm who is able to maintain an angle in all circumstances except one where the fight goes really foobar. They know naval theory to a pretty nuanced level, and are able to break down a fight into an order of operations usually riddled with almost occupational jargon, like orbital, parallel, turreting, nosing, peeling, island waves, northwest waves, popcorn, inside and outside mast, shooting hatch, window guarding, double snipe, backtrack, going for an ego, cannon chop, crud box, helm crate, tank crate, etc., etc. Above else, any PvP Gold Curse player is organized and communicative to the extent of being the Sea of Thieves Royal Navy, and as such they usually only sail with people that they have known for a long time, and who they expect to understand and synergize with all of their callouts. These guys usually have one, or at most a small handful of crews that they engage with, so they're kinda closed off to outsiders. Where they differ, I notice, is hand-to-hand skills and the ability to withstand and recover from really heavy pressure, which I think are probably some of the most difficult skills to master. I'd say these weaknesses align across a pretty convenient gradient, which you can see on screen, going that usually the less cosmetics a Gold Skelly is wearing, the better they are at these things, and I'm including myself in this camp. I think that the reason for this lies in how it communicates their intentions and reasons to play Hourglass. People with the barren gold bones will tell you that they've never really cared about the cosmetics. They're playing Hourglass because they love fights and love to push themselves. They wear the gold bones to scare and get reactions out of people because they have it, but would still be playing Hourglass even if there were no rewards at all. They've probably always loved PvP, playing Arena when it was around and organizing TDMs when they want to change a pace. That explains why they have almost no weaknesses. Whereas those on the other side went for the curse because they like the way that it looks. Me talking, cosmetics were probably their main incentive for getting into Hourglass in the first place, and then they learned PvP skills simply as a means to achieve their goals. Sure, they have a competitive nature and really enjoy naval, but don't really care about being the best and won't go out of their way to practice playing at that level. They just wanted a really rad-looking skeleton to flex. Now that they have it, they're pretty much done trying, and maybe take Hourglass at a more relaxed pace than you would think from a first glance. Overall, thanks for stopping by, everyone. I appreciate you listening. I hope you agree. If not, feel free to argue and share your anecdotes. I'll see you in the next one or on the seas.